Hey everyone, 2021 is probably one of the best years to learn a new skill, and programming languages can be one of the most productive skills that you can learn. On average, tech-related jobs and jobs that require programming earn you up to 30 to 40% more in lifetime income, according to code.org. Someone with an undergraduate degree in their life will earn about $1.2 million. Someone who is in a programming or software engineering career can earn sometimes 40% higher than that in their lifetime. That means that if you have a programming job, from the time that you finish your undergraduate to the time you retire, you'll be able to earn enough money to buy a pretty large house in a mid-sized city or buy a parking spot in downtown Toronto. Jokes aside, let's get into the best programming languages that you can learn this year to upgrade your career or to start a new one. Hey guys, my name is Imtihan. I'm a computer engineering grad student with a couple of years of industry experience under my belt. It's been my experience that learning how to program can be one of the most valuable skills that you can learn. And often learning how to program is not as hard as it seems. The biggest pitfalls that we face when we learn how to program is trying to do too much too quickly. So start with baby steps, learn the basics, and then start going deeper. What are the top programming languages that you can learn this year? When I say top, I mean the top programming languages that are actually used in the industry. The most popular programming languages that will increase the likelihood of you getting a job at some of the biggest software companies in the world. In this current climate, we can see the value of knowing how to work with technology, and technology companies are growing at a rapid pace. So let's get into it. Okay, so to figure out the best programming languages of 2021, we need to understand what are the most popular programming languages used by some of the biggest industry players in the world. There's a very good place where you can learn how to do that. A huge amount of the software projects that are built all over the world are actually hosted on a platform called GitHub. Imagine GitHub is to code as OneDrive or Google Drive is to your Word documents, PowerPoints, and whatnot. A lot of the software that the world is run on is written in programming languages, and those programs are actually stored on a platform called GitHub. So if we look at the trends that are going on GitHub, we can tell which programming languages were the most popular in 2020, and that will tell us what programming languages are likely to be popular also in 2021. This isn't looking at the total amount of code written in a specific language. This is talking about the total amount of code that was added or changed in that programming language on GitHub. GitHub is a massive platform containing hundreds of thousands and even millions of repositories from many different companies around the world. So these stats are going to tell us exactly what the most popular programming languages are and what the most active programming languages are. And what does the most active programming languages tell us? It tells us which programming languages are actually being used right now by the industry to work on these software projects. So let's take a look at some of those trends. I will be looking at these programming language trends through a place called GitHub 2.0. I'll have it linked below. On this page, you can see the activity of each programming language in a tabular format, and it's very easy to understand. So let's take a look at the top 5 programming languages that are on the list on this website. And then we'll look at the trends from some of the other websites on the internet that deal with job postings related to technology. So make sure to stay tuned for those, because that will actually tell us a little bit more information than this will as well. So in the fourth quarter of 2020, that means the last 3 months of 2020, the programming languages that had the most amount of code contributed on GitHub are as follows. JavaScript had the most amount of code written, followed by Python. In third place, we have Java. In fourth place, we have Go. And in fifth place, we have C++. So this gives us a pretty good idea of the most popular programming languages on GitHub. Now, GitHub is responsible for storing a vast amount of programs and a vast amount of code from many companies around the world. But this isn't the full story. So to do that, we'll have to actually go a little bit deeper and look at some of the job posting websites and what kind of analysis they've come out with for the later half of 2020. But before we do that, let's look at these top 5 programming languages and how easy or difficult they might actually be to learn. Interestingly enough, JavaScript and Python are among the easiest programming languages to get started with, and together they make up some 35% of the total amount of code written in GitHub. This tells us two things. A lot of companies are looking to work in programming languages that are very quick and easy to pick up. This means that their employees have to be trained for less amounts of time before they can be productive in those companies. And you can take advantage of that when you are learning how to code at home. These programming languages are fairly easy to pick up, and there's a lot of online resources that can help you learn these programming languages and build projects in these programming languages so that you can actually show something on your resume with these programming languages, and you can be confident that you know enough about these languages to actually work in an environment that require these things. For example, JavaScript is used extensively in web development. So if you want to learn JavaScript, a good option might be to try to build a website in JavaScript, and you slowly build up that website, maybe turn it into a personal website for you that you can use and present to potential employers. This means that while you're learning JavaScript, you're also working on a project that demonstrates your ability to use that programming language to build something. If you're applying to a job and the company uses JavaScript to build websites, you've demonstrated that you're actually able to use that programming language in a way that's relevant for them. And that can be very powerful for you. The other 3 programming languages on this list are also very important. Java and C++ have been around for a very long time, and they have many use cases. Java is the primary programming language for Android development. Kotlin is a newer player in this space, but Java is still extensively used in a lot of places, even beyond Android development. So it makes sense that it's in this spot. It's a little bit harder to learn than JavaScript or Python, but there's still a lot of companies that use Java to build their applications, so it's a very strong programming language that you will be able to learn. And one of the best ways to demonstrate your skills in Java is to actually build an Android application with it. Google has extensive documentation on how you can use Java to build an Android app from scratch at home, and I'll have linked to its documentation below. So make sure that if you're interested in Java to check that out and see how you can use that documentation to build a mobile application in a couple of weekends. C++ is a little bit harder to learn, but if you're able to learn it, it is a very powerful programming language. It gives you a lot more control over the computer hardware that it's run on, and that means that you can build programs that run significantly faster and more efficiently than some of the other programming languages that we mentioned here. One of the main advantages of Python is that you can have C++ programs wrapped in a Python package, allowing Python to actually run and execute C++ code, thus taking advantage of the speed of C++ while still being able to develop in a programming language like Python, which is much more easily learned, and it's actually significantly easier to code in Python than it would be in C++. So these are some things that you want to keep in mind. But let's move on from GitHub and let's take a look at what jobs are most in demand based on some of these job posting platforms like LinkedIn and Indeed. So Indeed has this website called the Hiring Lab, and you can use the Hiring Lab to actually take a look at the most important skills for the job title that you're looking for. So on here, I'm actually looking at some of the most popular and most in-demand tech jobs that you can find. So I'm looking at front-end web development, back-end web development, I'm looking at software engineering, and data scientist. These are common roles that you tend to see in some of the biggest tech companies in the world. And let's take a look at what programming languages are going to be most useful for these types of jobs. I'll also have this website linked below. So if you're looking for a very specific job title, you can go on this website, type that in, and it'll tell you the most important skill for you for that job. Now, these are not set in stone, so your mileage may vary, but it's a good starting point to figure out what kind of skills you need to pick up to be able to get the job that you want. So for front-end development, it seems the most important programming language you can know is JavaScript at 81.3%. That means that 81.3% of all the jobs that had front-end development as the title required JavaScript. A secondary important metric for front-end development is CSS, sitting at around 61%. You could learn React or React.js at around 45%, and HTML is also sitting at 48-49%. So these are some of the most relevant skills for front-end web development. What if you wanted to become a back-end developer? Well, the story changes a little bit. Back-end development, almost 50% of the postings on Indeed required Java for back-end development, and almost 40% required Python. And JavaScript was also listed in 28% of the job posting. You can use these guides to figure out what kind of programming language is going to be most useful for the type of role that you're looking to get. For general software engineering, the story changes somewhat. Software engineering is a broad term, and it can encompass many different types of software engineering roles. So you have to understand that if you're looking to get into the software industry, maybe looking at the most popular languages here will help you get in somewhere. You can start to build up the periphery skills that'll let you specialize into something specific later on down the line. So let's take a look at what's the most popular programming language for software engineer job titles. And there's a theme here. Java is number 1 at 53%, followed by C++ at 41%, Python in third place at 31%. As you can see, front-end development, back-end development, software engineering, they all have a lot of cross-correlation. That means that a lot of the programming languages that you see are the same across all three. And a lot of companies like to do this. The fewer programming languages you're working with, the more communication you can have between the different teams working in a company. So it's very important that you figure out what type of job you want and what's the most popular programming language for that type of work, and then learn that. As you can see, even when they're hiring, they're looking for the same sorts of skills that we saw on the GitHub commit page. So I hope that gives you a good idea of the kinds of programming language that you want to focus on when you are trying to learn a new programming language this year. And one thing that I would encourage you to focus on is to actually think of a project that you can build when you are learning these programming languages. You'll pick up a lot of the concepts faster when you have an objective in front of you, and once you are done building that project, you will have something that you can showcase on your resume and talk about during your interviews with these tech companies, demonstrating that you have a deep understanding of these languages that you are working with. I hope this video helped you decide on the programming language that you want to learn this year. If you have any questions about good resources to use when learning any of these or any of the other programming languages, make sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I will try to write down some of the resources that I used when trying to pick up some of these languages. But that's everything from me today. Make sure to drop a like on the video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And remember to always keep learning. Bye-bye.